Hey there, welcome back to my channel, String Things by Mel. My name is Melissa. I'm a stay-at-home mom living in Vancouver, Canada, and on my channel, I like to chat and share everything about my knitting hobby. Today, I'm bringing you in on a process, an exercise that I do, and I've titled it Spot the Difference. This is something that maybe some of you are struggling with or not, but I wanted to show you how I compare very similar patterns and kind of dig through and figure out, well, how are this the same and how are they different, and ultimately get down to choosing a pattern. Now, I'm not going to be choosing a pattern today. The goal is just comparing some patterns. So to keep things easy for myself, I've only have 3 patterns that I will be comparing. They are relatively well-known patterns from, big knitting designers. So, and also my kind of goal is not part of I'm not trying to endorse these patterns or anything. I just searched real quick. These popped up and fit my parameters of all being drop shoulder sweaters with high neck or a turtleneck. So the theme today is drop shoulder with high neck, and comparing 3 of those sweaters and trying to figure out which one we like better. So the 3 sweaters that I will be reviewing are the PetiteKnit pattern Wednesday sweater, Caidree's Harlow sweater, and from my favorite things, Knitwear sweater number 11 light. There is a regular sweater number 11, but it only has 3 sizes, and so we're not even going to get into that one. So let's get into how these are all the same. So very briefly, these are all seamlessly constructed from the top down. They are all drop shoulder, and they all have some sort of ribbing on the neck and of the sleeves and the body. And they either have just a regular high neck or a rolled over turtleneck. So, and these all are oversized fitting sweaters, meaning that they have 8 or greater inches or 20 centimeters or greater of recommended positive ease. So now let's get through how I start finding out the information about the sweaters and finding out what makes them the same or different. So first level is looking at the sizes. So I'm reading all the information off of Ravelry. Some of these designers, or maybe all 3, have their own websites. But regardless, the information should be the same whether you're looking at Ravelry or the designer's website themselves. So first up, Wednesday sweater. I should also mention I am wearing the Wednesday sweater, so there may be a little bit of bias when I speak about the Wednesday sweater, but I'm going to try to leave that out as best I can. Yes, it's knit in Noro Silk Garden Solo, held single. It's the worsted weight, and this is the smallest size that I knit. All right, so the first kind of level of information to look at is sizing. The Wednesday sweater comes in 9 sizes, labeled as extra small to 5XL, and the finished chest or bust circumference ranges from 110 centimeters to 175 centimeters, and that's in inches, 43¼ to 69 inches. Now, there is a recommended positive ease of 25 centimeters or 93¼ inches, so this sizing is actually made for body, chest. The actual body measurements are 80 to 150 centimeters or 31½ to 59 inches. So that falls an inch short of what I think the norm of what size inclusive means. I believe to be a size inclusive pattern, your pattern sizing must be made for busts or chests of 30 inches to 60 inches. And that's for women's sizing. I'm not sure what it is for men's, whether it's the same or not. I imagine it's similar. I don't know. But anyways, size inclusivity means a bust of 30 inches to 60 inches, or what is that? Around just under 80 centimeters to 152 centimeters. I didn't actually write that down, but you know, I said in inches at least. The sizing for the Harlow sweater also comes in 9 sizes, also labeled as extra small to 5XL. And the finish measurements for that sweater is 105 centimeters to 168, and that's 41¼ inches to 66 inches. This sweater has a recommended positive ease of 20 to 25 centimeters or 8 to 10 inches. So the actual body measurements that this pattern is made for is 80 centimeters to 143 centimeters, or 31¼ to 58 inches. So again, this one falls short of being considered size inclusive, both in the lower range actually and the upper range, because the Wednesday sweater and the Harlow sweater they start at a 31½ inch bust. So, which for me, I don't like because I'm kind of right at that measurement. So that is something I've brought up in past podcast episodes, but I won't get into it today. But yes, size inclusivity should be on both the lower range and the upper size ranges. The last pattern, sweater number 11 light, comes in 8 sizes, labeled extra small to 4XL. The finished chest circumference is 120 centimeters to 166 centimeters, or 47¼ inches to 65¼ inches. And after accounting for ease, the recommended ease is a little different for this one. So positive ease is a little bit different for the sizes extra small to extra large. And then the 2XL to 4XL have their own recommended positive ease. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like recommended ease should be the same from the smallest size up to the largest size. I think it should be up to the knitter, the wearer, to decide if they want more ease or not. I feel like this pattern is saying, because you are a larger body, you shouldn't wear as much ease as a smaller body. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? I feel like it should just be even across the board. Anyways, for extra small to extra large, there's a recommended positive ease of 35 to 40 centimeters, or 13¾ to 15¾ inches. And for the upper size range, the recommended positive ease is a little bit lower at 30 to 35 centimeters, or 11¾ to 13¾ inches. So if you're just comparing the sizing, looking at all these, and if you are someone who does not want to knit any patterns that are not size inclusive, your search would end here. All 3 patterns would be a no-go for you. And that's how it goes sometimes. But for the sake of this video, we're going to go through the full exercise, comparing as much as we can between these sweaters. So the next kind of level to look at, or I look at anyways, is gauge or yarn weight. So the Wednesday sweater is actually the bulkiest sweater of the 3. It is knit on heavy worsted or bulky weight. It can be a worsted plus a lace, so holding 2 yarns double, or just holding a single strand of bulky. Mine's a little bit different, that I just held a single strand of worsted, so I have a little bit of a more open fabric, but I like that. But I just wanted to mention that in case you're wondering how I decided to substitute. So different reasons for my case. The gauge is 15 stitches by 24 rows, and it's knit on 5mm needles. So 5mm needles is gonna feel quick in my opinion. I always feel like, well, my ultimate needle size is 4mm. That's also because I don't like knitting with worsted weight too much, but that also goes into where I live and how chilly or not chilly it gets. But anyways, before I digress too much, those are the details for the Wednesday sweater. The next bulky, or the middle of the yarn weight range, is Caidree's Harlow sweater. And this one has a gauge of 19 stitches by 28 rows. It's knit on 4.5 millimeter needles, and you can knit this up holding a lace and sport yarn held together, or a single strand of worsted. The next and last one, and I guess the lightest in terms of yarn weight, is sweater number 11 light. This one has a gauge of 20 stitches by 28 rows, 4 millimeter needles, and this one can be knit with a fingering held with a lace strand, or a single weight of DK yarn. Now, based on that level, going back to whether you like to knit with worsted or bulky weight yarn, I like knitting with bulky weight yarn in terms of how much quicker those garments knit up. However, where I live here in Vancouver, it doesn't get that cold here, in my opinion. But how I made my Wednesday sweater work is that Silk Garden Solo is a wool silk mohair blend, and there's quite a bit of silk in it, so it's not as warm, and it's relatively lightweight. And because I knit it with a slightly more open fabric, I actually get quite a airflow through, so it's not as warm as it looks. So for me, this works. However, if you knit with a really woolly wool yarn and knit up this pattern, maybe too warm for you. So maybe this one is not a good option for you. So you move on to, say, the Harlow sweater, which is more of like a heavy DK worsted weight, or you can go even lighter and knit sweater number 11 light, which has a DK weight yarn. Now, after those kind of two levels, the next thing is actually digging into some of like the visual details. Like, so visually, what's more appealing or not appealing about these three sweaters. So looking at the Wednesday sweater, it has 1x1 twisted rib on the neck. It has a fold over turtleneck, and it has quite deep or long ribbing on the sleeves, and again 1x1 twisted rib on the sleeves and on the body. And the body has a split hem where the front is shorter than the back, and all the ribbing details are very long. Like, can I do this? Like relatively long lengths of ribbing. Sorry, you can see that I'm just wearing this random striped shirt under my sweater. Yeah, my outfit underneath does not match. Now, if you don't like 1x1 twisted rib, you could, of course, change that to 1x1 rib. But that is something that you'll have to decide if you like this yarn weight, whether you like the twisted rib or not. Next thing about the Wednesday sweater is just the overall look of how the shoulder is pretty clean. It's pretty simple. There's no real defined lines or details along there. And something that I'm going to point out is the line here. So there's where the front yoke and the back yoke join, and where the sleeve stitches are picked up. This line here is relatively straight. And I mentioned that because keep that in mind for the next two sweaters. Because it's a detail that you may or may not like, or if you notice, you're not sure why it's different on some drop shoulder constructed sweaters. I'll get back into that. So let's go into the Harlow sweater about visually what you can look at right away. So you can right away notice that it has different ribbing. It has 2x2 ribbing. It does not have a fold over neck, but it still has a high neck. You could totally keep knitting though, and you could make a fold over neck, because I believe the neck is picked up after. And for the Harlow sweater, there's a really nice shoulder detail that spans from one shoulder to the next, even across the back of the neck. It looks like a little braid. And again, just like this Wednesday sweater, there's a nice straight line from where the front and the back meet, and to where the sleeve stitches are picked up. The Harlow sweater also features side slits, but I believe the front and the back are the same length as far as I can tell in the photos. Last, sweater number 11 has twisted rib again on the neck, the sleeves, and on the body. Still relatively lengthy ribbing. I think that's kind of a theme across all three sweaters, kind of lengthy ribbing. You can, of course, knit your ribbing shorter or longer. This one features a defined line across the shoulder as well, just like a thicker straight line versus the kind of single kind of chain braid that's on the Harlow sweater. And back to that shoulder line, you'll see on the sweater number 11, that line where the front and the back meet, there is a little bit of like an indent or a dip where you go to pick up your stitches for the sleeves. And that is due to the type of construction of the sweater. So that's not something that, unless you really know how to fix it, which there's kind of a way you could do it when you go to pick up your stitches, but without doing too many adjustments to a pattern when you're trying to choose one, that's part of the design. That's not like an oops in case you've never seen that before. You're like, what is that? That's part of due to the construction method of that type of sweater. And then another visual thing that you can look at for the sweater number 11 light is that it has an asymmetric hem. So the front is shorter than the back, and that's achieved without side slits. So it does still have the full round body hem, but it is asymmetric. Now, after that, next is doing some reading. So it is important to read how the designer describes the construction and the overall look of the sweater, so then you can also further make further considerations about which one that you want to knit up. So the Wednesday sweater has short rows, and it is constructed first from the back. You cast on stitches at the neck, and you make this kind of a little bit of a trapezoid shape. That's pretty, don't want to say standard, but it is a typical way to construct drop shoulder sweaters. And so this kind of wedge or trapezoid shape is achieved with short rows. So depending if you are good or comfortable with short rows, you could totally pick this pattern. If you are not, then this pattern may not be the one for you. You could get away without doing short rows, but I'm trying to do this kind of exercise comparing without saying like, but you could do this instead. Trying to just like look at these patterns as is. So this one has short rows. And that's kind of what's most different about it from the other two. The Harlow sweater, as far as I can tell, I cannot tell. I don't know if the back yoke is constructed with short rows or not. I have never done a Caidree pattern before, so I don't know what her typical drop shoulder construction method is like, especially with that little chain detail in there. From what I can see, like, I don't know. But if you do know, please let us all know in the comments, just to help anybody out in deciding whether they want to knit up that pattern or not. I don't think it reveals like any design secrets if something has short rows or not. I don't know. Do you guys think it does? Because I don't think it does. It's part of the construction. Unless it really reveals that chain, which I don't see that happening. I don't know. I haven't knit this pattern. I don't know in this pattern. And then for sweater number 11 light, I believe that line and the back yoke is constructed without short rows. And that's just based on my experience of my favorite thing knitwear patterns that I have done, and other patterns that have this kind of like similar band or defined line. That is achieved by knitting flat, back and forth in rows, and a certain increase rate on either side. So if you don't like short rows, then probably sweater number 11 light and the Harlow sweater are going to be your go-tos. If you don't mind short rows, then you go with the Wednesday sweater. Now, that is pretty much it in terms of all the information that I go through in terms of comparing. After all of that, I usually have a good idea of which one I would pick. If I'm really not sure, I may go look at other project pages on Ravelry or search the hashtags and see how it turned out for other people. You know, ease could play a factor too. So the Harlow sweater has the least amount of ease, and sweater number 11 light has the most. So me being on the small end, on the, I guess, the extra small size is what I would have to knit. I would have to decide how much ease I would actually want. You would have to decide how much ease you'd actually want. Yeah, and it's interesting that despite going to size 5XL, the Wednesday sweater and the Harlow sweater, they're not size inclusive. And I wanted to mention that because if you go on Craft Yarn Council, they are kind of a resource that designers can use for body charts or body sizes. Like if you're looking to grade up your patterns, figure out like what size is, you know, what's a small, what's a medium kind of thing. They do have a free body size chart available on their website. I don't know how many designers use this one, whether this one's more like North American sizing or European sizing, but on their website, a 5XL is listed as someone with a chest of 60 to 62 inches. So just to give that, throw that out there. Also, an extra small is listed for someone with a 28-inch to a 30-inch bust. So, I mean, I commented on this before, and someone commented on one of my videos when I mentioned this, and saying that size inclusivity needs to run on the small end as well. And someone had commented saying like, oh, I don't think designers should make patterns go down to 28-inch busts because I feel like that's telling people they need to be smaller or targeting teenagers. And that comment rubbed me the wrong way a bit because I don't think, you know, just because that size is not available or making that size available tells people like, oh, there's a 28-inch bust size available. I want to be 28 inches. That's not quite how it works. I mean, but what I wanted to point out was that I often have to knit size extra small, but according to that body size chart, and I've argued this before, is like, I'm not an extra small, actually. I'm a small. And also the comment of targeting teenagers, like what's wrong with targeting teenagers? There is, I believe, a size gap in knitting patterns. So if you get a children's or youth pattern, they usually go up to ages like 12 to 14. And then there's nothing, and then you have to move on to adult patterns, I guess. But thinking back of what size I was when I was like 15 to 18, for example, yeah, I'd have to knit, if I didn't know how to knit, the size for a 14-year-old, but that pattern would have been made with of 12 to 14-year-olds proportions in mind, so I would have had to make a bunch of adjustments. So anyways, that's just like a random ramble I have about sizing there that I wanted to mention, and also like if that matters to you as well. But that brings us to the end of this comparison video. I hope that you are able to take away one or two things. Let me know if you liked this. Let me know if you want to see this in other kind of styles of sweaters. I like comparing and digging into what's the same and what's different. So happy to do more if that interests anybody. So thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today, guys. And so until the next one, happy knitting. Bye.